How do you improve speed on a WordPress website? There's obviously a lot to think about when it comes to improving speed on a WordPress website, but here are my 5 best recommendations and plugin suggestions for you to use when it comes to improving your website's speed and performance. Number 1, start by selecting a good caching plugin. Caching plugins store a static version of the website's pages, and this allows the server to deliver these cached pages to visitors much faster than having to generate those pages dynamically on each request. So most hosting companies will offer a caching plugin already, and that's great. If your hosting company uses a caching plugin, go ahead and add that to your website. If your hosting company doesn't offer a caching plugin for some reason, you can look at some of the caching plugins that are out there. W3 Total Cache, WP Rocket, WP Super Cache are all good choices, though there's lots of others. Now, when it comes to thinking about those caching plugins, the thing to keep in mind is there's no one right caching plugin. You have to install a few of these different caching plugins and see which one's going to work best on your website. I've never found one caching plugin that works across the board. Given your unique configuration, given the way your template works and so on, some caching plugins are going to be better than others. So keep that in mind and experiment with some of these different options. I've also seen people use fully customized caching solutions where they actually build their own. However you end up implementing it, the savings can be dramatic. But keep in mind that the savings of a caching plugin are going to be even better if the website's already pretty fast without the caching plugin enabled. So you do want to focus on other things. Adding in a caching plugin is a great help, but it's not the only thing you need to do to improve your website's speed. Number 2, you need to find a premium theme that's optimized for speed, or maybe consider a custom theme. As great as a lot of these pre-built or pre-packaged themes are, and as much flexibility as they offer and as cool as they can look, many of them come with a lot of extra code, and that extra code is going to slow down your website. So by design, these off-the-shelf themes, these pre-packaged themes, they're all trying to cater to a really wide audience, and they offer lots of features and lots of functionality and lots of options within them. And that's great, but not all of those features, not all of that functionality, not all of those different options will apply to your website. And the CSS and JavaScript that powers these features and the functionality on this theme, that's still going to be there in the website, even if you're not using it. And all that unused code is going to cause slower load times. The browser still has to load code, even if your website's not using it. So you want to find a pre-built theme that's already optimized for speed. There's some out there that do a great job with this, and they really reduce how much code is left over for things you're not using within the theme. If you cannot find a theme that does this that you like, then this is where it makes sense to invest in a custom theme for your website. And that can be a big investment, but the upside to a custom theme is that you only have to build the essential things you need on your website. So you end up with a lot less waste, and you end up with a lot less unused code that has to be loaded to the page. Next up, you want to think about how to optimize JavaScript on your website. Now, JavaScript affects every website, not just WordPress websites, so every website has to think about how to optimize their JavaScript files. But especially on WordPress websites where some plugins can rely heavily on large JavaScript files, this becomes really important. Excessive JavaScript can worsen speed across the board, and it can impact Google's Core Vitals. For example, the browser might be busy processing some JavaScript function, and it will be unable to respond quickly to a visitor interacting with your website. It's busy doing something else, and that visitor's interaction is going to have to wait. That worsens your website's interaction to next paint time, or INP time, which is one of the Core Vitals metrics. Some of the caching plugins that I mentioned before optimize JavaScript as well. If the caching plugins aren't doing quite enough though, you can look at some other plugins that are out there. Some plugins minify JavaScript files. They make that file smaller. So that way, instead of loading a really big JavaScript file, you're loading a much smaller JavaScript file. Plugins like Autoptimize or Debloat can help with this. Another way to optimize is by delaying when JavaScript loads into the page. So you're waiting to load JavaScript later, and that helps make the load more efficient for the browser. Flying scripts is a useful plugin to help with that. Another way to improve your WordPress website speed is to find a good plugin to optimize images. Images are one of the biggest contributors to website speed. When I look at website speed reports, it's usually images and JavaScript that take up the most time on loading a website. So if you're focusing on JavaScript, that's great, but you also need to focus on optimizing images. And you want to do your best to optimize every image on your website. Now, there's a lot you can do yourself before you upload those images to WordPress, right? When you're saving that image, you can choose more optimized file formats like AVIF or WebP. You can crop that image to the dimensions that are actually used on the website. You can make sure you're saving it at the smallest file size possible. All that kind of stuff will help. However, you can also add plugins to WordPress that will help with image optimization. Some of the better plugins to look at are Imagify, Smush, and ShortPixel, all of which can be really good and really useful to just make sure that your images are taking up as little space as possible during the website's load. My last recommendation is to optimize your WordPress database. WordPress databases can get overloaded with old and irrelevant records, and that slows down database queries. And then as a result, it slows down the website as a whole. Remember, every request made to WordPress requires several calls to the database to fetch content. So regularly pruning the database helps prevent those issues. This can be done manually, but it can also be done with plugins like WP Optimize, WP Sweep, or WP DB Manager. One more bonus recommendation: speed has to be a priority from the start. This priority will influence template design, the features you want in the website, which plugins are selected, how pages are constructed, and so much more. So if speed matters, you're not going to choose a bloated design. If speed matters, you're going to restrict functionality and features, minimizing plugin usage. If speed matters, you will carefully evaluate the need for things like page builders. If speed matters, you are going to take the time to optimize all the images on your website. So before you begin on a new website project, like a redesign or redevelopment, make sure that everybody on your team is aligned with how important speed is. That way, all these decisions suddenly become easier. Yes, you need those plugins still, but those plugins will be able to do so much more because your website was already built to be really fast in the first place. Let me know if you need help improving your website speed or if you have any questions about this. I do this type of work for clients all the time, and I'd be happy to take a look at your website to see if I can help. I help clients with everything from quick reviews to full in-depth assessments and everything in between. You can email me at matthew@elementive.com if you do want help or if you have any questions. Please subscribe for more videos like this from Elementive. Thank you so much for watching.